Okay, and again, thank you for joining Career Innovations weekly Q&A session for job seekers. If this is your first time joining us, I'm Bridget Baggett. I'm the founder of Career Innovations. Career Innovations launched in 2007. We are pretty much a boutique executive search firm. We find candidates from anywhere of engineering, IT, healthcare, and we use different type of innovative tools to locate the best talent for our clients. If this is your first time using GoToWebinar, you can ask questions one of two ways. Depending on how you logged in, you can raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, I can unmute your line, and that way I can actually hear you and you can verbally ask your question. If you logged in through the computer and you don't want to talk, you can actually type your question in the chat box, and I will get to your question towards the end of the workshop. I did have some questions that came in before the workshop, and that's really how I like to get the questions in. That way I can prepare the slides for the questions, and I can give a very thorough overview on the answer that you're trying to get. But if you didn't send a question in, definitely, so you won't forget it, you can go ahead and start typing those questions in, and that way I can get to those towards the end of the program. And I always do a firm overview of myself. Not only do we offer job seeker training, we also do compensation benchmarking, referral and retention workshops. We use unconventional and innovative methods to find our top talent. One of my true passions is organizational development and change. I really truly think that the organizational culture is what's going to not only attract but retain your top talent, and plus it's also the company's core values that's going to get those long-term employees in there. So it's really the foundation of finding and attracting top talent. So I really do like organizational development as well as organizational change. One of my favorite quotes is from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, which is good is the enemy of great. Few people attain great lives, partly because it's just so easy to settle for a good one. If you ever have a chance to check out that book, Good to Great by Jim Collins, I highly recommend you take a look at how some of the Fortune 500 companies have rose to become who they are today, and also how some of the companies also have failed. And you can actually apply that to yourself as well, not only using a company. One of the first questions that I had from a register or an attendee was job fair survival tips. And the spring is coming. A lot of people are going to start attending job fairs or career fairs. And the first thing you really want to do, and usually I have this pop up so you can't see it all together because I don't like everyone to have to take this information in at once. But the first thing you should do is make sure you're actually attending a job fair that's going to be relevant to your ultimate goal. There are a lot of job fairs out there that you don't want to, you're really not looking for the jobs they have posted. Either they're lower level positions or they're positions that you don't have experience or background in. So before you jump on the job fair, make sure you research to figure out what companies are going to be there. The jobs that they're recruiting for at the job fairs, are they relevant to your skill set? Because if you get there, you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste the employer's time just to figure out that the jobs that are there is nothing that you would apply to. So that's your first thing you want to do before you actually go to a job fair, is to research it and make sure it's going to fit your overall career goals. Next thing you want to do is, if you do find the job fair is going to be something that you want to participate in, you want to research the company and prioritize your overall attendance when you go. What I mean by that, you're not going to try to go to every single company that's at the job fair, and depending on how big the job fair is, you might not be able to physically do so. I've been to some pretty big job fairs where they've had hundreds and hundreds of companies where it was almost impossible to try to go to each and every booth. So you want to be able to do your research and figure out what companies you absolutely want to go to, what jobs are they having open that you would like to apply to or talk to a decision maker about, and already have that in your mind, have some type of list created before you actually even attend. So you first want to be able to prioritize, find out what companies are going to be attending prior to the day of the job fair. In fact, most job fairs are posted sometimes weeks, if not months in advance. So you're able to prioritize the companies that you want to visit. You want to spend time investing on who's actually going to be there. Sometimes when job fairs are posted, they actually have the recruiter that's actually going to be at the booth. You want to make sure that you can either reach out to that person beforehand, and that's what's also reach out to the companies in advance, or reach out to that decision maker beforehand. Do some type of warm introduction. Also let them know that you're interested in a particular position that they may be recruiting for on site. And if all possible, see if you can actually set up some type of appointment in advance, which means that, hey, it may not be a formal interview, but it may be an informational interview. Hey, can I come by the booth around your lunchtime, or after lunch, or before lunch, or before it gets too crazy? So you want to make sure that you can at least reach out to them and set up some type of plan beforehand, which that means that you can have an advantage over your competition. Again, when you have research and be prepared, that means have your resume, cover letters, networking, and business cards. And the advantage with doing your research in advance, that means you can actually personalize these items that you're going to bring with you. That's one thing that I really do like, when someone can actually put my name on their cover letter or put the company on the cover letter. That shows that you actually took time to craft this. Hey, it may be a template. Some people use the same cover letter all the time, but at least you took the time to at least say, instead of saying to whom this may concern, you actually have a name in there, a company in there, and that shows that you actually went to the website to find this information. Networking cards and business cards, something that you can do with that, and I think I spoke about this on past workshops. Vistaprint, you can get free networking cards. Like I said, all you have to do with them is pay for shipping. I think it's $2.50. You can use a standard business card, nothing fancy. If you want to do custom cards, we actually use Overnight Prints. They're based out of California. That way you can do a more customized card, and if you have that IT experience where you can do your own graphics, you can upload that and make your own customized card. So those are two places that you can go. Of course, there are more. You can Google networking cards or business cards. There are other places that you can use, but the whole point is being able to give them something besides your resume. And I've actually had candidates not only do a networking card, I had a candidate that did like a 3x5 card, which kind of was a snapshot of their resume, and it was a great little almost as big as an index card, and it had all their top selling solutions. What I mean by solutions, what they did, what value they brought to their organization. They had all their contact information, and on the back of the card, they had all the reasons why that company should hire them. It was just out the box thinking, very creative. It was something that employer actually held on to and put aside from the stack of resumes that they were receiving. That person stood out to them. So you definitely want to find ways that you can be creative besides just a resume, and what can you leave them with? So that's why I think a networking card in a business card is definitely something that's appropriate. Another tip I want to give everyone, another tip I want to give everyone is that when you go to these job fairs, there are going to be a lot of companies that are going to run out of cards. It's happened to me all the time. Especially towards the end after lunch, they've given out their last networking card or whatever the case may be. Bring index cards with you. What I usually do is take index cards and I cut them in half if I go. And I've done this with raffles, because what we'll do, we'll have a table and we'll have a raffle and we'll have people put their business cards in there. And some people don't have business cards, so we'll take blank index cards, cut them in half, and have them put their contact information. You can do it with sticky notes as well. The whole point is that you want to be able to walk away with some type of method of following up with that employer. So even if they run out of business cards, that's no excuse on why you can't exchange information. You should be able to pull out a blank index card and say, hey, no worries. Can you please write down your name and contact information? I really would like to get in contact with you. I really would like to follow up with you. So you want to at least have something available, and you should still have cards as well. So you should still give them your card, but also take down their contact information as well. So that's why I tell everyone, bring blank index cards or sticky notes with you, so that way if anybody ever runs out, you can always have a pen and an index card to take down their information. Visit your low priority companies first. And a lot of people may think this is backwards because most people say, well, I want to get to the jobs I really want first. And I understand that, but the reason why you want to go to your low priority companies first. And the reason is practice, practice, practice. This is going to give you time to fine tune your approach. This is going to give you time to stumble and mess up on your elevator speech. You want to be able to have the best impression. Like they said, the first impression is the best impression. And you don't get second first impressions. Everyone knows that as well. So that's why you're going to go to your low priority companies first. You're going to be able to, like I said, fine tune your speech, fine tune your approach, and there's going to be things that you forgot. You're going to, I forgot to say this or I forgot to say that. That's fine. Next company you go to, you're going to remember that, but you're also going to remember, hey, I'm also visiting my low priority companies first. So once you've spent the first hour or two with your low priority companies, then you're ready to approach those premium companies that you actually came to see. Next thing you want to do is beware of time. You don't want to stand there and monopolize any employer's time. First of all, they'll look at that as rude, and they'll look at also at that as intruding, because they're there also to see other candidates and other applicants as well. So you want to be able to ask specific questions. That's also with being prepared, being able to have your questions ready, being able to get to the point directly and effectively, and also get that contact information to follow up with any information that wasn't answered while you were there. So that way, you're not monopolizing their time, but you're also able to get to all the companies on your list that you created beforehand. Next one is have some type of follow-up plan in place. A lot of people don't do this. They go home with a whole stack of business cards and they never reach back out to these employers. They think, well, I gave them my resume, and I'm going to sit by the phone or sit by my email and wait for them to reach back out to me. It doesn't work that way. You were probably the 250 resume they received that day. If you want to be able to capture their attention, you have to follow up. And the best way to do that, and a lot of people still use email, which is great. I think nothing beats a paper note card, an actual card that's handwritten. And people don't get this anymore. And we actually send out cards with all of our candidates that either do any business with us. We use send outs, and I don't know if anyone heard of this. It's actually a card delivery service. You won't need this because it's for business, but they actually send out handwritten notes on your behalf. And the reason is this, because we have so many companies that we send them to, but you won't believe the response that they get, because they're more likely they're looking for that thank you email. They actually get a stamped letter in the mail. What I say, this is a tip that you can do about this so you won't forget. Go to Walmart, go to Walgreens, wherever you shop, get the blank thank you cards, keep them in your car. And the reason why I say this is when you keep them in your card and you have these business cards, that's the reason why you get business cards. Most business cards have their name, have their email, and most of them actually have the physical address of the organization. So when you leave that job fair, you can start writing those thank you notes to those employers that stand out in your mind the most. And the reason for this is that you won't forget those moments or the things that you spoke about or some of the details that you could easily forget 1 or 2 days later. So you want to keep some type of note cards in your car. And I've done this before when I was out there networking. I would keep note cards, and I would get a stack of them. You can get them, 10, 20 of them in a box. And I just keep them in the car, so while I'm out, I already have them in the car, stamps ready to go, and put them in the mailbox pretty much literally the same day or the next day. You don't want to wait more than 2 days, which is 48 hours for sending the thank you note. That way they're fresh on your mind. When they get that thank you note, some people do include resumes, so they actually send more like a what's it called, a 8x10 letter with a resume in the 8x10 envelope. Some people actually do that. You don't have to. I know some people that do, just for them to remember them. What I usually do with the note card, I mean, that's why I emphasize having business cards and networking cards. In that note card, after you thank the person for their time, you bring up something that happened relevant in that meeting, then you want to put your networking or business card in there. You really don't have to put your resume. I know people, they do send their resume, but just put your business card, and that's where they're going to remember you. They're going to say, oh, I remember so-and-so just by that business card. So you want to actually include that in the note card as well. Next question that we had was about an elevator speech. The elevator speech that we come up, some people say it should be 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Is really what you're comfortable about, what you're comfortable with, and also you can actually read if someone's engaged in your speech. You know if you're standing there and just rambling and the person's eyes are just glazed over. You know that. You also know if somebody's actually engaged with what you're actually saying. So with that, you can tailor how long you need your elevator speech to be. The first thing you want to do, or the first component of your elevator speech, should be leaving them wanting more. So when you walk away, you should have them wanting more of what you're trying to say. With elevator speeches, they're meant to be short, so you don't want to try to cram everything into the elevator speech. You want to give them details that are pertinent for the job that either you're applying for or the position that you're interested in. In this elevator speech, you should be explaining your expertise, why you're best suited for the position, and also giving some type of solution. And we've talked about this, and I know some people are probably tired of me saying this, and I've said it in past workshops. Solutions sell. You don't. And what I mean by that is, they're looking for a problem to be solved. They could care less if it comes from you or your competitor. So you want to be able to sell a solution, and you want to make it relevant to their actual industry. You want to make them care. People do business, or people hire people that they like and respect. People can be kind, they can be loving, but they sometimes can come off standoffish if you're trying to sell them something. And what I mean, and a lot of people can do this by trying to sell themselves too hard. So once they feel that they're trying to be sold, a lot of people put up their defenses. They start to zone you out, and you start to get that conversation. Everyone's had that conversation, like yeah, they're really not listening. They're just like, okay, let's wrap this up. And you don't want to get to that place where you're getting that conversation. You want to be able to make them care. And what you mean by that, make them care, is introduce yourself, address a problem that they may have right out the gate. And what I mean by that, if they're hiring for a marketing manager, hiring for an IT position, that should be the first thing that comes after introducing yourself. So you're having a warm introduction, but you're getting right to their problem, and you're starting to also try to inquire about some things that they're having, or the problems that they're having, and some solutions they're putting in place. That way you're having kind of an open-ended conversation. You're not just standing there rattling off 30, 60 seconds of me. So you want to get them to be engaged by asking them about, hey, you have a marketing position open. I see this is going on with the organization. What are you currently doing, or what's some challenges that you're currently having in getting this position filled? You'll be amazed how they'll tell you, hey, this is, we've interviewed this many people. We have many people in the pipeline. We really haven't made any moves. Sometimes you'll get, hey, this position's on hold. You'll be amazed to hear that, hey, the position's on hold, so now you haven't wasted your time applying for the job knowing that the position's not going anywhere anytime soon. Make sure you're making anything you say relevant. That means there's a lot of elevator speeches that are very dated. And what I mean by dated, they're talking about things that they've done either 10, 15 years ago. Being honest with you, employers don't care about things that changed from the last 2 decades. You want to make sure that your elevator speech is relevant. What are you doing now? You want to be able to turn your pitch, and this is what it is. Your elevator speech is a pitch. You want to be able to turn your pitch into a full-blown conversation. You know, if you work with big name companies, there's nothing wrong with name dropping them. Even if you work for their competitors. Companies love to have candidates that work for them direct competitors. If they didn't, I wouldn't be in business. A lot of people love, you know, to be able to hire either a recruiter or a headhunter to find people that work for their competitor or their competition. So don't be afraid to talk about big names or big brands that you worked for in the past. You know, this is going to show that, you know, credibility is going to show that you have, you have industry exposure and experience. Again, if this is something that they're interested in, it's going to open that dialogue. You're going to be able to converse and have some open-ended conversation other than this being just a sales pitch. Next thing you want to make sure is that your elevator speech, a lot of people don't have some type of call to action. What is a call to action? A call to action is, okay, what are the next steps? After we have this good, intense 3 to 5 minute conversation, or even after you gave me your 30 to 60 second spiel, what are the next steps? Do you just walk away and say, thank you? You know, how does this speech going to follow up? You know, how are you going to keep this person on your radar? Your elevator speech should have some element of closing yourself. This is the part that you should be getting contact information, setting up some time to follow up with this particular individual. So when you're closing this conversation, you should be saying, you know, it was great. You know, it was great speaking with you. I'm so happy to hear about your organization. I would love to know more. You know, when's a great time for me to follow up? When's a great time for me to reach out? You know, so you should be having some type of way to close this and have some type of call to action. This way you can start closing these individuals, getting that contact information, and be able to make those phone calls. So this way they're not cold calls. These are now warm calls that you're making. You're following up with people that you've already engaged in. Of course, you want to be natural. I've actually had people that had elevator speeches that they sound like a robot, or they sound like they're reading a script. And the only way you can be comfortable about this is practice, practice, practice. You have to be able to practice this speech. Has to be able to roll off your tongue like it's not natural. How you can do this is practice with friends and family members. You can start testing yourself or testing your pitch to see how effective it is. And this goes back to the job fair scenario. Use those low priority contacts first to practice your test, to test your speech on, or to test your pitch on. So you should be going to those low priority contacts at the job fairs, or even when you're reaching out to companies that are not on your top 10 list, you can be testing this speech out to make sure is it effective. That way you can start tweaking it, you can start putting in things that are going to engage, and if you find out, hey, this when I talk about this particular point, this actually engages the audience. This actually engages the employer. So I'm going to start talking about this more in my elevator speech. You want to make sure you're putting components in there that are going to engage the person that you're talking to. And a lot of people don't do this with their elevator speech. They just give a speech and it's blah. You want to be able, and the whole point of having an elevator speech is to make it turn into a full conversation with the person that you're actually delivering it to. This shouldn't be something that you feel awkward saying. This is something that should be pretty much I would actually call it an icebreaker speech. It should be breaking the ice, getting that person to respond back to you. And the next slide that I've talked about before, that I had a question on how to deliver a solution, because I don't know if anyone actually was able to get online and see the workshop. I sent everyone the video on Where's Your Parachute that was on YouTube. It was a private video, so you wouldn't be able to see it just by going to her channel. If you didn't get that, shoot me an email. I'll send you a direct link to the video. But one of the elements that they're asked about was about building a solution. How do you deliver a solution effectively? And it's all about being the solution, and as part is coming across as an expert. And how you do that is, like I said, when you're doing your research, you're trying to look for a problem that needs to be solved. You're trying to look for something that you can uncover, either a problem, something that they're dealing with. It may be a merger or acquisition. It may be a new service they're launching, or a new product they're launching, or it may be, like I said in past workshops, it may just be people they're trying to manage. They may be onboarding people. They need someone to, either do the scheduling, do the managing. There's something that's going on for the reason of that position to be open. You want to figure out what that is. And once you're able to do that, you want to be the solution. And what I mean by the solution is you want to come across and being able to deliver something that they can implement within their organization. And this is no different from when I talk to clients and they tell me, hey, we're doing X, Y, and Z, and I'll just throw in some tidbits of, hey, have you thought about taking this approach, or have you thought about taking that approach? And it's giving them recommendations on what they can do. Again, people are not looking for a warm body anymore. They're looking for someone that can be innovative and bring something to the table. They're looking for someone that can bring their organization value. You want to be that person. And the way you could do that is, again, emphasize past solutions that you've done. I've looked at many resumes, and I know a lot of people on the line been in the workforce for over a decade, if not longer. It's a lot of things that you've done for past employers that are not on your resume. And I know this for a fact because when I actually interview some candidates, they'll talk about all these great things, and I'm looking on their resume like, where's this at? So you definitely want to be able to highlight some of the things and try to include them in your resume as well, but highlight some of the solutions that you implement at your past organizations. And one thing I said is putting together a 3, 6, 9 month plan. This is something that you can take to the job fairs, and like I said, this is something that you can leave with them. When you print out your resume and cover letter, you can also be printing out your 3, 6, 9 month plan. So when you're leaving them your resume, you also can be leaving them a solution, leaving them, hey, this is what I can do for you in the first 3, 6, 9 months. So that's the way you can put this together. And we talked about the 30, 60, 90 day. I said that was very unrealistic. It's really nothing that you can do. It's not a whole lot of impact you're going to have on an organization in the first 30, 60, 90 days. Most of the time, 90 days is the probationary period. You're really not doing nothing over the top those first 90 days. So that's why I expanded this to make this a 3, 6, 9 plan. Make sure the goals that you put into your action plan or your 3, 6, 9 plan are realistic, not over the top. Don't talk about you can double sales and you can, do the impossible, that the organization, that the person that currently is in play is not even doing. There's no way you're going to do that in the first 3, 6, 9 months if it hasn't been achieved by the company already. So you want to make sure that the goals that you're putting in there is not unrealistic, because you don't want to be you don't want to be blowing smoke, because once they can sense that this person's just trying to sell us, they really can't do this stuff, then you're going to become another candidate that they overlook. And also answer the how. And if you looked at that workshop online, when I talked about answering the how, that's what makes your goals actually real. You're not just saying what you did, you're actually saying how you did it. That's what makes the goals actually real. People want to know the how. It's great that you increased sales. It's great that you did this awesome application or you streamlined this process, but how did you do it? A lot of companies want to know the how, because they want to know, if you can do it and you can tell us how you did it, you may be useful in an organization. I can see how we can implement this in our company. So you want to be able to emphasize the how in your 3, 6, 9 month plan. So that's how you're able to come across with the solution and how you're able to solve the solution, put that in some type of tangible format to deliver to an employer. And I also say, if you can, and if you have it done in time, bring the 3, 6, 9 month plan with you to job fairs and have that with you, especially if you reach out to employers beforehand. That's going to be a great icebreaker to say, hey, I would love 10, 15 minutes of your time to go over some solutions I think that would be beneficial to your organization. Who would say no to that? Now, especially if they're looking for someone and they're hiring someone to do exactly that. Who would say no to that? And we're 30 minutes in. I usually leave the last 30 minutes for questions. My contact information is on the last slide. Again, you can reach me directly by phone. The best way to get a hold of me is by booking an online appointment by going to the website. and actually logging on and scheduling the time on the calendar. Or you can give me a call, and if I'm not available, definitely leave a message. If there's any questions right now, I really urge you either to raise your hand or type the question in the box. If it's anything that I reviewed that was not clear, definitely type it in the box, and I will definitely address it. And we'll go from there. Is there any questions right now? I'm going to open up the floor for that. I have one question. How do you find out who will be in the booth at job fairs? Well, depending on when you sign up for the job fair, sometimes they have the person, like they have the employer there, and sometimes they have the recruiter. They usually never put the hiring manager. I've never seen one that actually put the physical hiring manager on there, but I have seen job fairs that actually put the recruiter's name on there. And all you would do is go to LinkedIn, and you can look up who that recruiter is, reach out to them. A best way to do an introduction is, just introducing yourself, telling them and just letting them know you got their contact information off the job fair advertisement or website, and say, hey, I see that you're going to be at the job fair. I'm actually going to be attending. Would like to see if I can schedule some time to talk to you either beforehand or throughout the job fair. If we can set up an advanced time to talk. If the person's name or recruiter's name is not on the job fair information, try to look for the posting. Most of the time, if a company is going to be there, they have postings pretty much on all the job boards somewhere, especially if this is a pretty big company. And most of them, if they're using like a ZipRecruiter, or if they're using Indeed or something like that, they sometimes have the contact information on their job ads. If they do, I would reach out to the recruiter. Guess what? It may not be the actual recruiter that's going to be on site, but they may know the recruiter that may be manning that particular booth. So that way, at least if you reach out to someone that's recruiting for a job at that company, they can give you information and say, hey, I'm not going to be at the job fair, but, Katie is, or Jeffrey is, and I definitely can forward you their information. So it's just a way to get your foot in the door, to get that contact information of who's going to be there. So it does take research on your half to find out these job postings and who the recruiters are. But once you're able to do that, most of the information is readily available. Most recruiters are really looking for candidates, and they're not going to blow you off, especially if they can help you get to the right recruiter or the person that's going to be at the career fair. Okay, do I have any more questions? I do see a hand up. Okay, I'm going to unmute your line. Or did you actually type the question? Okay, I have a question. It says, how often should you follow up on your candidacy after an interview? When should you move on? Okay, after your interview, let me see if I can open this. Okay, after your interview, I always said the 3 strikes and you're out rule, sometimes 4, depending on their feedback. And you should be reaching out in 3 different ways. A lot of people just rely on one form of communication, and guess what it is? Email. That's all people rely on nowadays, because it's easier to email someone because you don't get that sense of rejection or that sense of, and that's why a lot of people just don't pick up the phone anymore. The best way to do it, the first follow-up should be, of course, your thank you note. We talked about that. That should be out the first 48 hours. After you do the follow-up for the thank you note, if you don't hear anything, you should do an email. Follow up with the email. You should be, if you've already interviewed with them, more likely you have their direct email address. That's your second form of communication. If you haven't heard back from the thank you note and the email, you will call them directly. Call them directly, very open, very carefree. Hey, and remind them of the 2 forms of communication. Hey, I sent you a thank you note, and I also followed up with the email, just checking back. And, you want to make sure you acknowledge that you've already communicated in 2 different forms of communication. Leave that voicemail if they don't answer the phone. Usually by the third time, or usually by the third form of communication, you get something. May not always be a yes. You usually either get an email saying, "Hey, I got your email and I got your voicemail. Been swamped. This is what the status is," or "Hey, after reviewing your credentials, we decided to go with other candidates." Or you may get, "Hey, you're still in the running, just haven't got feedback yet. I follow up when I get more information." So it's some ways you can get, if you do get a favorable feedback, like you're still in the running, still waiting to hear back from the hiring manager, I would wait. I would give it a week. Think of the day that you reached out. A week from that day, I will follow up again with a phone call, not an email, with a phone call, letting them know, "Hey, it's been about a week. I know that I'm still in the running. Just want to know what the status is." After the fourth one, and the only reason why I say the fourth one, that's an exception if you get positive feedback. After the fourth one, the ball's in their court. And you also have to keep in mind that you should be applying to so many jobs and should be having yourself busy with so many things. You're not sitting there just hoping and praying just for this one particular company. You should have so many irons in the fire that, hey, if this one doesn't call me back, I still have 2 more interviews I'm going on this week or next week, or I have 2 more people I need to follow up with. So that's how you should be having your play. If you're 100% active in your job search, you won't be just contemplating on one particular person. And I know a person that they had so many irons in the fire. Some people, they've done the 3 strikes and you're out, and they forgot to even they actually forgot to follow up on the one that actually had them still in the running. The person ended up following up with them, I think it was 2 weeks later, and they had already taken an offer. And it was almost like, hey, 3 strikes, you're out. I have so many, and the thing is, you have to remember that you don't want to hang on to that one person or that one company, because if that doesn't fall through, now you put all your eggs in one basket. So that's how I usually do it. 3 strikes, you're out, 4 maybe. Because I really think they got the note, they got the email, they got the voicemail. And if you respond to someone, reach out 3 different times a week apart, to me is no excuse other than either their nice way of telling you no, or they're so overwhelmed that right now it's not the position's not that urgent to fill. Because usually if a position's very urgent to fill, they're getting them in and out. Okay, so if we have any more questions, I do have a follow-up about the follow-up. So if the 4th time is still positive, would you follow up a 5th time? So if you follow, like I said, the 4th time and they're still giving you the, hey, you're still in the running, going to follow back up with you, and they're still giving you that, that's fine. But right now the ball's in their court. Because if you've reached out to them 4 separate times, 1 by mail, 1 by email, and 2 by phone, and they're actually responding, but the feedback isn't the feedback you want to hear. It's still, hey, we're still waiting to hear back from HR. We're still waiting to hear back from the hiring manager. Okay, the ball's in their court. And that's when you should be putting your efforts in something else. You don't want to sit there and just wait, because to me, after the 4th time, you're someone that really want to pursue, they're going to reach back out to you. And you never know, someone else may have caught their attention that they're spending more time on or trying to get in the process. Who knows what the case may be. They're going to only tell you what they want you to know. That goes for anything. So just make sure you're covering yourself and keeping those irons in the fire. Okay, do we have any more questions? Okay, I don't see any more questions right now. And again, we do this every week, so if you didn't think of anything this week, definitely write them down and you can follow back up with me next week. The whole purpose of this is to get everybody more effective and make their process a little bit more efficient when they're looking for a job. Don't wait till the last minute. Try to do this as effectively as possible. And I know I mentioned don't heavily rely on job boards. You definitely want to start reaching out to those decision makers, forming those relationships. And if all possible, either sit down and see if you can do some type of informational interviews. And a lot of people don't do those anymore, but just finding out more information about the company, and sometimes that can lead to employment with the organization. So you definitely want to make sure you're doing that, and you're not just holding back for one. I've seen a lot of people miss opportunities just waiting for that one company, and they let a lot of opportunities pass them by, and you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you're being consistent, and you're also being persistent within your search as well. And if there's not any more questions, we're about a quarter till. I definitely leave everyone on that note. This will be uploaded on YouTube, so if there was something that you missed or would like to review, you definitely can access it on our YouTube channel. And we'll be back next week with the new Q&A session with some new questions. At the end of this workshop, there is a survey. If you could please take the survey. I usually do this after each workshop. That way you can tell me anything that I need to improve on. You can ask questions for the next workshop. You can even give me things that you'd like to do a workshop about, because I know some people actually say, hey, just do a workshop about networking, or just do a workshop about this. So please leave that in the Q&A, in the survey section. When you close out your browser, the survey will pop out. I think it's only 10 questions, and really would appreciate that. Everyone have a great night and a great rest of the week. Good night.